All right. Welcome to the Rise Up podcast. I'm your host, Jonah Mitchell. And on this show, I help simplify weight loss for the chronic dieter by taking away all the restrictions and removing all of the rules that have been given to us from other people that don't really know who we are and what we need. And my whole goal is to help you get out of your own way, find your own path that is actually the way you want to live and not in a way that makes your life harder. You're losing weight, improving your health is supposed to make your life better. And yeah, I'm super excited to be recording this episode. I mean, I'm always excited to be recording this. So I always ask this, I love doing this. This is my favorite form of content creation. So if you find this valuable, if you learn something new today, all I ask you share it with at least one person. If you share it on social media, just tag me. I'd greatly appreciate that as well. The support means a lot to me, and I hope it helps you even in a small way. That's my ultimate goal here. And yeah, with today's episode, I'm gonna get it right. I'm gonna get right into the thick of it. And from what you saw in the title, this is honestly my favorite piece of advice this is my best piece of advice that I want you to really understand going into 2023. And this is probably the best. This is what I love coaching to my clients. This is what I love helping people understand, even if they're never one of my clients, is understanding the difference between idealistic and realistic. All right. I may have made an episode about this before, but you have to hear something multiple times before it really sticks. So here's what I want you to understand between those two. Idealistic is what most people tend to jump into when they are starting a New Year's resolution or saying they're picking things back up, get back in the swing of things. And, idealistic is doing everything perfectly all the time, right? Going to the gym 5 days a week, hitting 10,000 steps every day, drinking a gallon of water, not touching carbs, not drinking alcohol, doing everything quote unquote right. And cutting out all the bad foods, all these things that in an idealistic world, they'd work. If everything was idealistic, if you had no responsibilities and you can dedicate 100% of your time to your health and your fitness, you probably would be able to do those things. However, we are human beings. A lot of us have a lot more responsibilities than we remember or than we realize. And as soon as one little hiccup gets thrown in that whole idealistic approach, we find that it's very hard to stick with those goals. And the frustrating part is that we see results quickly when we're doing everything idealistically, right? So we get in our head that we have to do everything like that. Like if we want to see results fast, we have to do it that way. Everything has to be perfect. Everything has to be super consistent. And we trick ourselves into thinking like that's the only way to get the results that we're looking for, right? And this is why it can be so hard to stay consistent, because subconsciously it's so difficult to do that, right? We don't hold any person that we care about to a perfect standard, right? You wouldn't hold your spouse, your kids, or your best friend to the level that you would hold yourself to, right? Because we see ourselves as an exception. We understand that what we can actually handle. So we think we should be able to rise and be that perfect example. But in reality, it's unrealistic. It's impossible to be perfect all the time. And if we try and fit idealistic goals into a really tough schedule, you have a stressful job, you have kids, you have barely enough time to get to the gym twice a week, let alone 5 times a week, right? You have no idea how to meal prep and prepare food that's actually going to work for your goals and be sustainable in the same way. And now you have all these rules and expectations. It's like, how does anyone do this consistently? How can anyone do this and feel successful, right? This is the trap of idealistic goals. We set an unrealistic standard that we do not yet know how to reach, right? We haven't learned how to integrate this stuff into our life where we're currently at. Maybe if we weren't working and we didn't have our biggest responsibilities, you could hit idealistic tendencies. Totally fine. But if we do not account for the stress and the day-to-day responsibilities that we have, you're going to have a difficult time making sure you have enough time for all these things that you think you have to do to see results, right? Even though you are seeing results quickly, doesn't mean that's the only way to see results, right? And I'm gonna tell a quick client story. We just one of my clients I've been working with going on 7 months now. She's down 40 pounds, I believe. I may be saying that wrong, but 40 pounds, in the first 3 months, she didn't lose a single pound a single pound, right? Because we didn't jump off the gate when we first started by saying, hey, we're gonna hit your 10,000 steps. Go to the gym every single day. You're gonna stop eating fast food and candy, all this stuff. It was like, no, we worked on her relationship with food because that was the biggest thing that she struggled with the most. How would she like to deal with her emotions and her stress instead of relying on food, right? We did that until she felt confident enough that she wouldn't fall back into the same behaviors that she used to. And once we did, then we started implementing the strategies to help her elicit a calorie deficit that would help her lose weight consistently through the holidays, right? Without adding all this stress. So now she doesn't have the tendencies that she used to have. She learned how to incorporate food that she loved without feeling super restricted. And she learned how to deal with her stress in a much more beneficial way. So that when we transition to the weight loss portion of her program, it just every week, it's like, you're still losing weight. You still feel good. You still feel in control. It's not like it's always sunshine and rainbows. Everyone has their challenges that come up. Life will always find a way to try and punch us in the face. But she learned first how to coexist with food and learn how to understand which scenarios she wanted to do and build a realistic routine first before we put the expectations of weight loss on her head, right? And this is why starting an idealistic is important, or starting outside of idealistic, more focusing on realistic is the most important thing, is because now you're going to prove to yourself that you can be consistent with your specific struggles, right? That client struggled with using food for emotional situations. Some people struggle with making time for themselves. Some people struggle with just super stressful jobs. And it's just, they feel like they don't have enough time, right? So if we try to take you, a person who feels like they don't have enough time, and make you feel like you have to commit an extra 10 hours when it comes to exercise and meal prep and tracking calories, right? The person who feels like they don't have time and then hears that they have to add an additional 10 hours to their health and fitness, it's like, how the hell are they supposed to do that? How the hell am I supposed to find 10 hours when I don't know how to do that right now, right? So then we look at where you're at right now, realistically. Where's your goal, right? We have to start with the end in mind, right? What is the goal? Cool. All right. The goal isn't the action steps. It's how do you want to feel once you're there at your goal, right? How do you want to behave? Because usually when you ask yourself these questions, you start to realize you start to realize the true struggles you have, right? I don't want to be thinking about my food all the time. I don't want to use food for my emotions. I don't want to have to exercise excessively. I want to be able to eat foods that I love, right? Those are all the building blocks, the foundational pieces. That's like, realistically, what can we start to do, right? If you don't want to work out all the time, cool. That's amazing. We don't have to work out all the time. How many times a week can you commit to exercise? Once or twice? Great. Let's do that first. That's realistic. It's like, wait, am I not doing enough though? You're doing more than you would be if you were to jump head first, try to do 5 days a week, do it for a couple of weeks, and then fall off for 3 months, right? That's if you would do just once or twice a week consistently, from New Year's to June or July, you would be doing way more over that period of time because you just kept showing up, because you kept doing it, and you're proving to yourself that you can commit to something consistently, right? Consistency is only an issue when we don't understand how to do it for ourselves. We hear other people finding success and hear how they do it, and then we put our mind, our current problems, and our current issues in that state and say, how the hell could I do any of that, right? And that's not the case. There's many ways to get to your goals, right? There are certain things that we need to accomplish in order to elicit a weight loss response, but the way that we get there has to be your way. It has to be through the realistic tendencies that you build, right? So idealistic is these super strict rules. Realistic is taking where you're at right now. What can we do to help you build some sort of momentum, right? Is it your relationship with your food? Is it showing up? Is it just showing up for yourself in general? Is it dealing with your stress, right? Is it getting outside more consistently, right? Is it the words you use to describe yourself in your journey, right? Where do we need to start realistically first? Because when you do that, again, you start creating it your way. Your way becomes much more sustainable. And that client I mentioned earlier, right? When we started it the way that she needed, we still were working out. We were still finding ways to improve her diet, right? But we addressed her problems because we were like, realistically, this is where you're at, right? So as you're gearing up, right, for New Year's, I want you to understand this. Okay. You have a hard time changing your behaviors, right? Not just because you're lazy, right? And I don't ever think anybody's lazy. They just don't understand. So I'm not calling you lazy for having a hard time sticking to idealistic goals, right? There's nothing wrong with striving for those. However, I need you to understand that biologically we hate change. It's not just a thing that like it takes actual practice and work to understand how to elicit change effectively, right? And biologically, our bodies are programmed to just survive. And to survive, it wants to understand the scenario that it's in. It will get used to every situation, good or bad, right? If we are unhappy in our current situation, but our body knows what to expect, it will say, this is my new normal, and it will do everything in its power to stay here because change is unknown and change is risky because when we change, we can risk changing that normal. We can risk dying, right? That's the extreme because we live in 2022, almost 2023, right? We don't have like saber-toothed tigers and scary ass big animals hiding around a corner to kill us. We don't have to leave our house if we don't want to, right? Our body inherently likes to know what to expect. So when we get super motivated to make changes, right? We think, oh, I could do this, I could do this, I could do that, I could sustain this. This happens a lot. I sign on a client, they're super motivated for the first few weeks, right? They're seeing lots of change, they're feeling good, but then life punches you in the face, right? And then because our body likes going back to what it knows, what it's comfortable with, when it's super stressed out, the last thing it wants to do is think about all the things that they have to do in order to get to their goal. It wants to go back to what it knows, right? I've been giving this example a lot lately and this is something that I've always had to think about because I played collegiate sports, right? But think about high level athletes. They train really hard. They train a lot consistently, right? One, to understand what they're supposed to do when it's time to when the game time comes, right? But more importantly, to understand they're training their nervous system to know what to do when stress is super high, right? So when stress is super high, your brain wants to go back to what it knows. Your brain wants to go back to what it knows. And if you train in a way that's already involved with that is already stressful, when the game comes, they don't have to sit there and think about the 10 different things that could happen on a play or a scenario of during their event. Jesus. So it's the same thing that happens for us. When life gets stressful and you have your tendencies to deal with to cope with that stress, right? Your body and your brain will go back to know that because your body only cares about relieving stress and staying comfortable. Change is hard. It makes it a lot harder to try and change everything all at once, trying to make sure everything is idealistic. It becomes much easier when you make it realistic so that when life does punch you in the face, you have a floor. You have a floor that will help you understand how to still be making progress. Even if it's not perfect, even if you feel like you're not doing much, you're still doing something. Something small is better than nothing at all. I'm going to say that one more time. Something small is better than nothing at all. And if you could remember that, right? If you could remember that realistic, even if it doesn't feel like you're doing a lot, it's adding up. It's like investing. The more you invest, the bigger payout you're going to get. That's how the realistic changes come. So if you start by focusing on one or two things at the same time, right? You don't feel like you're doing much. But this is like, I swear to God, every client I talk to when they first sign on with me, I give them one or two action steps. They look at me funny, like, that's it? I'm like, that's it. And then a year goes by and they're 20 plus pounds down. And they didn't feel like they actually went on a diet the entire time because all we focused on was realistic changes consistently. Realistic small changes consistently. That's it. If it's your fitness, if it's your nutrition, if it's your mindset, doesn't matter. As long as it's something that is realistic to the current situation, right? Motivation is cool. Motivation and New Year's resolutions and picking things back up in January is cool. But don't fall in the same trap that you usually do when the emotions fade and you've made these you've made these big commitments, right? And life will remind you of how difficult things can be. It happens like clockwork to every single one of my clients. Every single person I've worked with, something always tries to get in the way. Life is just funny that way. And it has to do, and I'm sorry, it becomes much easier to stick and to maintain the trajectory of where you want to go when you are focusing on very simple things in the beginning. Because when you do that, you build a much deeper foundation, a much more solid foundation. So when we'll call life the big bad wolf. All right. And you are the first houses you tried to build were the house of hay. And I can't remember the other one. What was the other? There's two houses, a hay house and then a pillow house, right? Or some shit like that. I can't remember the old fairy tale, but life, big bad wolf comes huffing and puffing and blowing the house down, right? Your foundation was built on being super consistent, super restrictive, super perfect, right? Hitting all the idealistic things first. You tried it and you may have saw some success, but life blew your house away. Feel like you're starting all over. Right. You go to the next house. It's made out of pillows. You learn something new, but you're like, no, I'm more motivated this time. I'm going to be just more disciplined. I'm going to try and do the same thing. I know I have to go to the gym 5 days a week. I know I'm going to have to hit drink my gallon of water. I'm going to do it this way this time. Right. Life comes along. You're super motivated. You may work through some of the ups and downs because you're more prepared, but still life will still try and it blows your house away again. And you still tried those idealistic tendencies. Right. When we get to the brick house, right? And you're like, okay, you know what? Instead of trying to do all the things all at once, right? Change my entire relationship with my food, change my entire relationship with fitness, right? Work on understanding how to implement sustainable mindset changes that help me see this journey for what it actually is, and not what I hope it to be, right? Where, I lose all the weight and I feel better. It's more, I feel better first and then the weight loss comes. Those things, I'm going to focus on one or two pieces from those three categories, right? It could be adding one vegetable into my day. It could be adding one walk. It could be adding a proactive stress management thing. And you pick one or two or all three of those things. They're still all pretty manageable because you don't have to commit too much to that, right? One vegetable a day, that's pretty sustainable. One 5 to 15 minute walk, that's pretty sustainable. One 5-minute activity that's just for me, I can do that, right? It doesn't feel like a lot, but you're committing to something very simple. And over time, you're going to realize how much better doing those things makes you feel. It's like, okay, well, I like doing these things. They make me feel better. So maybe I can add 2 vegetables a day. Maybe I go for a second walk. I could find another 5 minutes for a walk. I like feeling a little bit more in control of my emotions. Maybe I might do a little bit more things that will help me in the avenue. I might find more activities that I like to do, right? You start naturally gravitating for things that make you feel better. So when life shows up to blow the house down, now that you're in this foundational house that has bricks and life tries to blow it all down again, you are much more capable at finding those areas that you're like, okay, maybe I can't do everything I was doing, but I know I can get one vegetable in. I know I could go for one walk. I know I could give 5 minutes to myself, right? You establish that realistic floor. Then when all else fails, you can do some very simple things that help you still feel better, right? It's not perfect. We never expected perfect, right? The only people that expect perfect are those who have yet to understand that sometimes good enough is good enough. All that matters is making sure you stay on the path, right? That's the only thing that matters, is make sure that you can be able to show up consistently for yourself. When you do that, when you do those things, you make everything so much easier because you removed all the rules from what you thought you were supposed to do. And then you start to show up as the real you the entire time. So it's my favorite piece of advice because it was the key for me, right? It was the key for me when I struggled with my own career in football. I learned a lot about life through football because that's all I knew, right? That's all I cared about for 15 years. I went to college for football. I went to college to play football, not play school. That was always my favorite motto. C's to get degrees, right? But I didn't show up the way I was supposed to, right? I didn't do anything that I said. I didn't hit all the accolades that I wanted. But I also wasn't looking in the mirror and asking myself, is it really something I'm that passionate about? Or am I doing it for somebody else? Am I doing these unrealistic? Am I doing these workouts for me? Or am I doing it just because I don't know anything else? Right. Or actually, that might not be the best example. How about this? How about after I lost football and I went through all those mental shifts and I wanted to get in the best shape of my life? Here we go. This might be a much better example. And I felt like I was doing everything right. I read all the articles about fasting. I read all the articles about low carb. And I was like, okay, it's got to be fasting. It's got to be low carb if I really want to get lean and really want to see the results that I've been looking for. You know, I always wanted to look like an athlete when I was playing sports, and I never did. So now I know how to do well. Now I figured out. I found the book on fasting. I think I still have the book. Yeah, it's called Boundless. I read that book cover to cover, and I read all the free ebooks about fasting in general. I was like, this is it. You know, I don't eat till noon, stop eating at 8, and that's it, right? My calories didn't change. My protein amount didn't change. Fasting didn't do anything else. You know, I learned how to control my hunger maybe, or listen to my body when I'm actually hungry, but sometimes I was super hungry and I would binge eat. Right. I still have that. If I get super busy in the morning and I forget to eat breakfast, man, when the first time I eat, it's really easy for me to just gorge on everything. But anyway, when I found that increasing my fitness and fasting and then eating less, you know, I didn't really understand any of that. I thought I was doing everything right. I was following all the rules. Where's my results at? I didn't actually understand what I needed. I didn't actually understand where I needed to be making the adjustments. I didn't understand the whole thing was, you know what, if I paid attention to my protein first, I probably would have seen much more results than fasting and working out 6 days a week. Probably would have saw much better results if I were to focus on that. But I was focused on hitting my 10,000 steps, hitting my gallon of water, fasting for for 16 hours. I think that's what it was, you know, and I wasn't seeing the results. And then I saw the results after I talked to a registered dietitian, and she's like, you have to hit these macros, right? All I asked her was what should my macros be? And she said, I don't know much about you, but this might work out. This will help you see the results. It was 300 grams of protein, 200 grams of carbs, 100 grams of fat. And I did that. And I followed it. I was like, this is the way to get to my results. And I started seeing results, but then I created another problem. I had a rule. I have to hit these numbers in order to see my results. If I don't, I'm going to lose all my gains. Couldn't enjoy my wedding, couldn't enjoy my honeymoon, right? Stupid. It's dumb. I did not sign up for that when I realized, well, I did not sign up for that when I wanted to get in the best shape. If I would have realized that, I would have sacrificed those moments of my life, right? I had a great time on my wedding, don't get me wrong, but I couldn't enjoy them to the fullest extent because I was still worried in the back of my head, like, ooh, should I eat that much cake? Ooh, should I have that chocolate croissant? I did enjoy the s'mores bar, right? But that was like, that's my sweets. Anyway, going down a rabbit hole. So, as always. So let go of idealistic, what you think you have to do, and embrace realistic. What are one or two things that you can continuously improve on over time that's going to help address you where you're currently at, and then take it to the next level, because you'll be able to show up consistently. And then you'll subconsciously be proving to yourself that you can be consistent no matter what's going on, right? And after you do that, you're going to start noticing that you're going to feel better. You're feeling better by doing these things, and that you can stay consistent no matter what's going on for yourself. And it continues to build. And then the snowball grows, and the results come much easier and much more sustainably than you ever thought they could. So, as always, I hope that made sense. You know, I go on my little rants and my rabbit holes, but I hope it helped. I hope it helped shift something. I hope it helped open some doors for you. And if you have any more questions about anything that I talked about, if you want me to clarify anything, I'm always happy to. Feel free to let me know. And if you want to find more of my social media stuff, any other things I'm working on, go ahead and check the not my Facebook group if you're watching that in there, but go ahead and check the show notes on YouTube and on the streaming platforms. But you'll be able to see, yeah, that should work out. If you're in my Facebook group, I hope you're doing well. I'm still always happy to answer questions the best way I can. If you need anything, always feel free to reach out. So I hope you had a great holiday. I hope you have a fantastic new year. And I hope you go at it in a way that you find this as the most successful year you've ever had. And yeah, that's it. I'll talk to you later. See you on the next one.